I thought I knew my wife of 18 years until she texted me, moving away with my new man. Good luck with the mortgage. But when she tried to access our bank account, she discovered I'd been 3 steps ahead all along. What she didn't know was about to destroy her completely. My name is Alexander Thorne. I'm 43 years old, and I own Thorne Logistics Solutions here in Ohio. We specialize in custom packaging for mid-sized businesses. Not glamorous, but it pays the bills, and then some. I built this company from nothing, working 16-hour days while Isabella raised our kids, Maximilian, Max, and Eliza. At least that's what I thought she was doing. The first real red flag came 3 months ago during Max's soccer tournament. Isabella had promised to be there, but when I looked up from cheering, her seat was empty. When I called, she said she was stuck at her design firm with an urgent client emergency. Funny thing was when I drove past her office on the way home, the parking lot was empty. Then there were the new clothes. Isabella had always been stylish, but suddenly she was buying expensive dresses and lingerie I never saw her wear around the house. When I asked about it, she laughed and said she deserved to feel good about herself after all these years of just being a mom. The phone calls started getting weird, too. She'd step outside to take them, claiming it was work-related. But Isabella is an interior designer. Since when do designers have emergency calls at 9 p.m. on a Sunday? Last month, I found a receipt in her purse while looking for her car keys. Dinner for 2 at Casa Bellini, the fancy Italian place downtown. The date was a Wednesday when she told me she was working late. The receipt showed 2 entrees, 2 glasses of wine, and a dessert to share. When I asked about it, Isabella's face went pale before she recovered. "Oh, that was with my client, Mrs. Henderson," she said, not meeting my eyes. We were discussing her kitchen renovation over dinner. I knew Mrs. Henderson. She was 75 and diabetic. She didn't eat dinner at 9 p.m. or drink wine. That night, I started paying closer attention. Isabella's phone was always face down now. She showered immediately after coming home from work. She'd started going to a new gym across town instead of the one 5 minutes from our house. But the moment that really opened my eyes happened 2 weeks ago. I came home early from a supplier meeting and heard Isabella on the phone in our bedroom. The door was closed, but I could hear her voice through the walls. "I know it's complicated," she was saying in a tone I hadn't heard in years, soft, intimate, the way she used to talk to me when we were dating. "But I can't keep pretending everything's fine at home." I stood there in my own hallway like a stranger, listening to my wife of 18 years discuss our marriage with someone else. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow, but what came next was worse. "He suspects something," Isabella continued. "Alex has been asking more questions lately. We need to be more careful." The way she said my name, like I was an obstacle to be managed rather than her husband. That's when I knew our marriage was over. Not because of what she'd done, but because of how easily she could discuss dismantling our life with someone else. I backed out of the house quietly, sat in my truck in the driveway for 20 minutes, and made a decision. If Isabella wanted to play games, I'd make sure I knew the rules. The message came while I was reviewing quarterly reports in my office. My phone buzzed, and I glanced at it, expecting maybe a client update or Max asking for a ride home from practice. Instead, I saw Isabella's name and a text that made my blood run cold. "Alex, I'm leaving. Moving away with Gillis. Good luck handling the mortgage and the kids on your own. Don't try to contact me." I stared at the screen, reading it 3 times before the words really sank in. 18 years of marriage, 2 children, a life we'd built together, and she was ending it with a text message. Not even a phone call, just 23 words that demolished everything. My hands didn't shake. That surprised me. I'd expected rage or panic or something dramatic. Instead, I felt this strange calm settle over me, like I've been waiting for this moment without realizing it. All those months of suspicious behavior finally made sense. I typed back, "Thanks for the heads up." It wasn't sarcasm. It was genuine gratitude. Isabella had just given me something invaluable. Clarity. No more wondering. No more second-guessing my instincts. No more walking on eggshells around someone who'd already checked out of our marriage. What Isabella didn't know was that I'd been preparing for this possibility for weeks. Call it paranoia or call it business sense, but when you own a company, you learn to protect your assets. 3 weeks ago, I'd quietly moved our joint savings into an account under my name only. I'd restructured the business finances to shield them from any potential divorce proceedings. I'd even consulted with a lawyer just in case. The mortgage Isabella mentioned in her text? The house was in my name only. Thanks to a refinancing we'd done 2 years ago, she'd signed off on it gladly, never reading the fine print that removed her from the deed. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a notification from her bank app. Isabella was trying to access our joint account. The transaction failed. She tried again, failed again. I could picture her face when she realized what had happened. The confusion, then the anger, then the panic. For the first time in months, I smiled. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. Isabella's number. I let it go to voicemail. She called again immediately. I declined to call and went back to my reports. The voicemail notification popped up. I played it. Alex, what the hell did you do to our accounts? Isabella's voice was shrill, panicked. I can't access anything. This is illegal. You can't just freeze me out of our money. Call me back right now. I deleted the message and blocked her number. At 5 o'clock, I drove to Max's school to pick him up from soccer practice. He got in the truck, sweaty and grass-stained, talking about the upcoming tournament. I listened, made the right responses, and didn't mention that his mother had just abandoned our family via text message. That conversation could wait until I figured out exactly how to handle it. For now, I needed to focus on protecting my kids and making sure Isabella's selfishness didn't destroy their lives any more than necessary. Max knew something was wrong the moment he walked into the kitchen that evening. At 16, he had his mother's sharp eyes and my stubborn streak. He grabbed a water bottle from the fridge and studied my face. "Where's Mom?" he asked. "Her car is not in the garage." I'd been dreading this conversation all afternoon. Eliza was upstairs doing homework, and I needed to handle this carefully. Max was old enough to understand, but young enough that it would shake his world. "Sit down, son," I said, gesturing to the kitchen table. "We need to talk." Max's expression shifted from curious to worried. He sat across from me, and I could see Isabella's features in his face. The same high cheekbones, the same way of tilting his head when concentrating. "Your mother has decided to leave," I said simply. "She's not coming back." The silence stretched between us. Max blinked hard, processing. "What do you mean leave? Like for how long?" "Permanently. She's with someone else now, Max." "I'm sorry you have to hear this." I watched my son's face cycle through emotions. Confusion, hurt, anger. When he spoke again, his voice was harder than I'd ever heard it. "How long have you known?" Max asked. "I suspected for a while. The confirmation came today." Max nodded slowly. "That explains why she's been so weird lately. Always on her phone, never really listening when we talked." He paused. "Does Eliza know?" "Not yet. I want to tell you first. Get your help figuring out how to handle this." That seemed to straighten Max's shoulders. Being treated as an ally rather than just another child gave him purpose. "She's going to be devastated," he said. "Mom's her hero." "I know. That's why we need to be smart about this." Max leaned forward. "Dad, are we going to be okay? Like, financially?" The question surprised me with its maturity. "Yes, we'll be fine. The house is secure. The business is solid. Your college fund is untouched. Nothing changes for you and Eliza, except that it's just us now." Relief flickered across Max's face. "Good, because honestly, if Mom could just walk away from us like that, then maybe we're better off without her." The bitter wisdom in his voice broke my heart. Number 16-year-old should have to grow up this fast. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Isabella had found a way around the block. "Alex, this is ridiculous. I need access to money for basic necessities. Call me so we can work this out." I showed Max the message. He read it and shook his head. "Basic necessities?" Max repeated. "Like running away with some other guy." I deleted the message without responding. Isabella had made her choice. Now she could live with the consequences. The next morning brought an interesting development. I was in my office at Thorn Logistics when my secretary Helena knocked on my door with a concerned expression. "Alex, there's a man here to see you. Says it's personal. Name's Fabian Moreau." Fabian Moreau, Isabella's first husband. I'd heard his name exactly twice in 18 years. Once during our engagement when Isabella mentioned she'd been married before, and once during a heated argument when she'd accused me of being nothing like Fabian, as if that was an insult. Send him in, I said, curious despite myself. Fabian walked into my office, and I immediately understood why Isabella had been attracted to him. He was tall, well-dressed, with the kind of confidence that comes from success. Mid-40s, graying at the temples, wearing an expensive suit. Mr. Thorne, he said, extending his hand. Fabian Morrow, I believe we have something in common. I shook his hand. Isabella, among other things, yes. Fabian sat down without being invited, but somehow made it seem natural rather than presumptuous. I heard through mutual acquaintances that Isabella has moved on again. Word travels fast. Fabian smiled grimly. Isabella has a pattern. I thought you should know what you're dealing with. I leaned back in my chair. I'm listening. When Isabella left me 15 years ago, she cleaned out our joint accounts and disappeared overnight. Left me with a mortgage I couldn't afford and debt I didn't know existed. She'd been having an affair with a real estate developer, convinced he was going to set her up for life. What happened? The developer was married and had no intention of leaving his wife. Isabella found that out the hard way. By then, I'd already rebuilt my life. When she tried to come back, I'd learned my lesson. Fabian reached into his jacket and pulled out a manila folder. These are copies of her financial records from our divorce. Credit card fraud, identity theft, falsified loan applications. She's done this before, and she'll do it again. I accepted the folder, but didn't open it yet. Why are you telling me this? Because Isabella's pattern is to burn bridges, then try to rebuild them when her new situation falls apart. She'll come back to you probably within a month with some sob story about making a mistake. She'll have legal papers claiming she's entitled to half of everything you've built. Fabian stood up. Don't let her. Isabella is not evil, but she's selfish in a way that destroys everything around her. Your kids deserve better. After he left, I opened the folder. The documents painted a picture of financial manipulation and emotional blackmail that made my stomach turn. Isabella hadn't just left Fabian. She'd systematically destroyed his credit, stolen from their joint business, and tried to claim alimony despite being the one who'd abandoned the marriage. I called my lawyer immediately. 3 days after Isabella's departure, Eliza started complaining of stomach aches. At first, I attributed it to stress. Kids often manifest emotional turmoil physically, but when she collapsed during soccer practice, I knew we were dealing with something more serious. The emergency room doctor was thorough but cautious. Mr. Thorne, Dr. Schmidt said after running a series of tests, Eliza has type 1 diabetes. Her blood sugar levels are dangerously high. I felt the world tilt. Diabetes. How is that possible? She's always been healthy. Type 1 can develop suddenly, especially during periods of stress, Dr. Schmidt explained. The good news is it's completely manageable with proper care and monitoring. As we discussed treatment plans, insulin schedules, and dietary changes, all I could think about was Isabella. Our 12-year-old daughter was facing a life-changing diagnosis, and her mother was nowhere to be found, probably playing house with Gillis somewhere. Max arrived at the hospital within minutes of my call. He took one look at Eliza, pale and hooked up to an 4, and his jaw tightened. Where's Mom? Eliza asked weakly. Max and I exchanged glances. We'd agreed to tell her about Isabella's departure gradually, but this complicated everything. Mom's not available right now, I said carefully. But we're here, and you're going to be fine. The next few hours were a crash course in diabetes management. Max took notes while I asked questions. Both of us determined to master every aspect of Eliza's care. When the insurance coordinator mentioned the costs, insulin, testing supplies, regular doctor visits, I was grateful for Fabian's warning about protecting our finances. That evening, after getting Eliza settled at home with her new medication routine, I called Isabella's block number from Max's phone. She answered on the first ring. Max, is everything okay? Isabella's voice was cautious. This is Alex, I said. Eliza is in the hospital. She has diabetes. Silence. What? Is she okay? Which hospital? She's home now. Type 1 diabetes. She'll need daily insulin injections and constant monitoring. I'm coming home. Isabella said immediately. No, you're not. You made your choice. Eliza asks about you. But she's better off with people who won't abandon her when things get difficult. Alex, she's my daughter. I have rights. Rights you forfeited when you walked away. Don't make this harder than it already is. I hung up and blocked her number from Max's phone, too. Later that night, as I was researching diabetes management online, Max found me in my office. Dad, Max said, I've been thinking. Maybe we should tell Eliza the truth about Mom. She's going to figure out eventually. You're probably right, but let's get her health stabilized first. One crisis at a time. Max nodded. For what it's worth, I think you're handling this exactly right. Mom left when we needed her most. That tells us everything we need to know about who she really is. My son's wisdom continued to amaze me. Isabella's next attack came through social media. I discovered it when Helena, my secretary, approached me with a concerned expression and her phone in hand. Alex, you need to see this. Helena said, my daughter showed it to me. It's all over Facebook. Isabella had posted a long emotional message about being forced out of her home by a controlling husband who was keeping her from her children. She painted herself as a victim of financial abuse, claiming I'd locked her out of her own accounts and was using the children as weapons. The post had dozens of sympathetic comments from friends and acquaintances who only knew Isabella's version of events. People were calling me a monster, a bully, a deadbeat father. Someone had even shared my business page with negative comments. She's trying to destroy your reputation, Helena observed. This could hurt the business. She was right. Thorn Logistics depended on relationships with local businesses and suppliers. If Isabella's lies spread far enough, it could impact our client base. I screenshotted the post and every comment, then called my lawyer. This is defamation, my attorney, Eleanor Vance said. After reviewing the evidence, we can file for an injunction to have it removed and potentially sue for damages. Do it, I said, but I want to respond first. That evening, I crafted my own Facebook post. I kept it factual and brief. For those asking about recent social media posts concerning my family, my wife left our marriage for another man, abandoning our 2 children during a medical crisis. Our 12-year-old daughter was recently diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. Rather than being here to support her child, my wife has chosen to spread false information online. I'm focused on my children's well-being and will not engage in public disputes about private matters. I posted it with screenshots of Eliza's hospital bracelet and Isabella's original text message about leaving. The response was swift and decisive. Isabella's friends who knew the truth started commenting with support for me and the kids. Others began questioning Isabella's version of events. Within hours, Isabella had deleted her original post. My phone rang at midnight. Unknown number. Alex, take down that post, Isabella said without preamble. You're embarrassing me. You embarrassed yourself. I just provided context. Gillis's family is seeing all this. It's affecting our relationship. Good. Maybe Gillis should know what kind of person he's getting involved with. You don't understand. I need this to work out. I can't come back now. The desperation in her voice almost made me feel sorry for her. Almost. Isabella, you made your choice. Now live with it and stay off social media if you can't handle the truth. I hung up and went to check on Eliza, who was sleeping peacefully with her glucose monitor beside the bed. This was what mattered, not Isabella's dramatics or Gillis's family's opinion. My daughter needed stability, and I was going to make sure she got it. The bombshell arrived on a Tuesday morning disguised as routine mail. I was reviewing Eliza's latest blood sugar logs when Max brought in the stack of letters from the mailbox. Most were bills and advertisements, but one envelope made my blood run cold. A notice from First National Bank about a second mortgage payment past due. I stared at the notice, reading it 3 times before the implications sank in. According to the bank, Isabella had taken out a second mortgage on our house 6 months ago for $75,000. The first payment had been made on time, but the second was now 30 days overdue. Dad, what's wrong? Max asked, noticing my expression. You look like you've seen a ghost. I handed him the notice. He read it quickly, his face darkening with each line. She mortgaged our house, Max said. Is that even legal? I was already dialing my lawyer's number. Eleanor Vance answered on the second ring. Eleanor, I need you to pull the title records on my house immediately, I said without preamble. Isabella apparently took out a second mortgage without telling me. That shouldn't be possible unless she forged your signature, Eleanor replied. Both spouses need to sign for a second mortgage. An hour later, Eleanor called back with news that made my stomach churn. Alex, Isabella did forge your signature. I have the paperwork here. It's a decent forgery, but there are discrepancies in the pen pressure and letter formation. More importantly, you were at the packaging convention in Detroit on the date this was supposedly signed. I had proof, conference registration, hotel receipts, even photos from the trade show. Isabella had committed fraud, plain and simple. What's our next move? I asked. We filed criminal charges for forgery and fraud. We also contact the bank immediately to contest the loan. Since it was obtained illegally, they'll have to pursue Isabella directly for repayment. That afternoon, I sat down with both kids to explain the situation. Eliza was testing her blood sugar levels, a routine that was becoming second nature to all of us. So, Mom stole money from our house? Eliza asked, her 12-year-old mind cutting straight to the heart of it. Essentially, yes, I said. She took out a loan using our home as collateral without permission. Max was furious. Dad, she's trying to destroy us. First, she abandons us. Then, she attacks your business reputation. Now this. She's not just leaving. She's trying to make sure we suffer for her choices. He was right, and his anger was justified. But I needed to channel that energy constructively. Max, I need you to help me document everything, I said. Every interaction, every attempt at manipulation, every lie. This isn't just about divorce anymore. It's about protecting ourselves from someone who's become destructive. That evening after the kids were in bed, I called Fabian Morrow. She did the same thing to me. Fabian said when I explained about the forged mortgage, took out a business loan using our house as collateral. I didn't find out until after she left. How did you handle it? Criminal charges. Isabella spent 3 months in county jail. It was the only thing that stopped her from trying to come back. Fabian's words hung in the air. I'd never imagined I'd be considering criminal charges against the mother of my children, but Isabella had crossed a line from abandonment into active sabotage. Do it, Alex, Fabian continued. Isabella only understands consequences when they're severe enough to get her attention. Isabella showed up at our front door on a Friday evening, just as we were finishing dinner. I saw her through the window. She looked tired, thinner than when she'd left, wearing clothes I didn't recognize. She stood on the porch for a full minute before knocking, as if gathering courage. Eliza heard the knock first. Dad, someone's at the door, she called from the dining room. I looked through the peephole and felt my jaw tighten. After 3 weeks of abandonment, fraud, and attacks on our family, Isabella had decided to make an appearance. I opened the door, but didn't invite her in. Hello, Alex, Isabella said softly. I need to talk to you. To all of you. The children are eating dinner, I replied. You should have called first. You blocked my number. All of them. For good reason. Isabella looked past me toward the dining room where Max and Eliza were pretending not to listen. Please, Alex. I know I've made mistakes, but I need to see my children. Before I could respond, Max appeared behind me. At 16, he was almost as tall as I was, and his presence felt protective. What do you want, Mom? Max asked, his voice cold. Isabella's face brightened at seeing him. Max, honey, I've missed you so much. I know this is confusing, but I can explain everything. Explain what? How you abandoned us when Eliza got sick. How you tried to destroy Dad's business. How you stole money from our house. Isabella's face went pale. You told them about the loan. I told them about the fraud. I corrected. The forgery. The criminal charges that are being filed. Criminal charges? Isabella stepped backward. Alex, that's going too far. We can work this out between us. We could have worked it out if you'd stayed and acted like an adult, Max said. But you chose to run away and then attack us from a distance. Eliza appeared beside Max, her glucose monitor in her hand, a constant reminder of the crisis Isabella had missed. Hi, Mom, Eliza said quietly. Isabella's eyes filled with tears. Eliza, Sweetheart, how are you feeling? I heard about the diabetes. I'm so sorry I wasn't here. You weren't here because you chose not to be, Eliza replied with devastating simplicity. Dad and Max take care of me now. Isabella looked at me desperately. Alex, please let me come home. Gillis and it's not working out. I made a huge mistake. Yes, you did, I said. Multiple mistakes. But coming home isn't an option anymore. I'm their mother. Then you should have acted like it, Max said firmly. Mothers don't abandon their children. Mothers don't steal from their families. Mothers don't try to destroy their children's security because they're unhappy. Isabella was crying now, but I felt no sympathy. She'd made these choices deliberately. And now she was facing the consequences. You have 5 minutes to say whatever you came to say, I told her. Then you need to leave. I want my children to know that I love them, Isabella said, looking at Max and Eliza. Everything I did was because I was confused and scared. I never meant to hurt you. But you did hurt us, Eliza said. And you're still trying to hurt Dad. That's not love. Isabella had no answer for that truth from a 12-year-old. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected, with worn wooden benches and fluorescent lighting that made everyone look tired. Isabella sat at the defendant's table with a public defender, having apparently exhausted her funds on Gillis and poor financial decisions. She looked nothing like the confident woman who'd walked out on our family 2 months ago. Judge Harrison was a no-nonsense woman in her 60s who'd clearly seen her share of messy divorces and financial crimes. She reviewed the case file while we waited, her expression growing more severe with each page. Miss Moreau, Judge Harrison said, looking directly at Isabella, you've been charged with mortgage fraud, identity theft, and forgery. How do you plead? Isabella's voice was barely audible. Guilty, Your Honor. The plea bargain Eleanor had negotiated was fair but firm. 5 years probation, restitution for all fraudulent charges, and a permanent restraining order keeping Isabella away from our home and my business. Most importantly, I was awarded full custody of Max and Eliza with no visitation rights for Isabella until she completed court-ordered counseling and financial responsibility classes. Mr. Thorne, Judge Harrison said, turning to me. Do you find these terms acceptable? Yes, Your Honor. My primary concern is protecting my children from further instability. After the hearing, Isabella approached me in the hallway. Her public defender had advised against it, but she seemed determined to speak. Alex, I know I can't undo what I've done, Isabella said quietly. But I want you to know that leaving Max and Eliza was the biggest mistake of my life. Then why did you keep making it worse? I asked. The fraud, the attacks on my business, the social media lies. You had chances to make this right. Isabella looked down at her hands. Gillis convinced me that you tried to destroy me financially. He said the only way to protect myself was to strike first. And where is Gillis now? Isabella's silence was answer enough. He disappeared the moment the criminal charges were filed, leaving her to face the consequences alone. Isabella, I hope you get the help you need, I said finally. But my children come first, always. That evening, I sat down with Max and Eliza to explain the court's decision. They'd been through enough uncertainty. They deserved to know their lives were finally stable. So, Mom can't just show up anymore? Eliza asked, adjusting her glucose monitor. Not without going through the courts first, I confirmed. And not until she proves she's changed. Max nodded approvingly. Good. We've been doing fine without her. Better than fine, actually. He was right. Despite everything Isabella had put us through, our family had grown stronger. Max had stepped up as Eliza's protector and my partner in managing her diabetes. Eliza had shown remarkable resilience in adapting to her new normal, and I'd learned that I was capable of more than I'd ever imagined. What happens now? Eliza asked. Now we keep building the life we want, I said. College applications for Max, managing your health, growing the business, normal family stuff. Normal felt like a gift after months of chaos. 6 months after the court ruling, Thorne Logistics Solutions had its best quarter in company history. Word had spread about how I'd handled Isabella's attacks with professionalism and integrity, and several clients had actually increased their orders in a show of support. Max was thriving as a senior, already accepted to 3 colleges with partial scholarships. His experience managing Eliza's medical needs had sparked an interest in nursing, and he'd been volunteering at the local children's hospital. Eliza had become the poster child for successful diabetes management. Her endocrinologist used her case as an example for other families, showing how quickly children could adapt when they had stable, supportive care. She'd even started a blog about living with type 1 diabetes that had gained a following among other young patients. The house felt different now, lighter, more peaceful. We'd repainted Eliza's room in her favorite purple, and Max had converted Isabella's old office into a study space for his college prep. Every trace of the chaos Isabella had brought into our lives had been systematically removed and replaced with something better. Fabian Moreau had become an unexpected friend and mentor. His experience with Isabella's patterns had proven invaluable, and his business connections had led to several new contracts for Thorn Logistics. Sometimes the best relationships come from the most unlikely circumstances. Isabella had completed her court-ordered counseling and had requested supervised visitation with the children. Max had declined, preferring to focus on his senior year without the distraction. Eliza had agreed to one meeting which lasted exactly 20 minutes before she asked to leave. "Dad," Eliza said afterward. She kept apologizing and crying, but she still doesn't understand what she did wrong. She thinks saying sorry fixes everything. "What do you think?" I asked. "I think some things can't be fixed. But that's okay because we fixed ourselves." The wisdom of a 13-year-old continued to amaze me. My dating life remained non-existent, but that was by choice. Max and Eliza needed stability, and I needed to focus on being the father they deserved. There would be time for romance later, when the kids were older and more settled. Besides, I'd learned something important about myself through this ordeal. I was stronger than I'd ever imagined. I could handle crisis, protect my family, and rebuild from nothing. Any woman who wanted to be part of our life would have to understand that my children came first, always. On a crisp October evening, as I was helping Eliza with her insulin injection and Max was studying for the SATs, I realized something profound. We weren't just surviving Isabella's abandonment. We were thriving because of it. Sometimes the best thing someone can do for your family is leave it.